Welcome to 4C Radio. We are broadcasting from the central campus of Christ University, Bengaluru. 4C Radio is brought to you by the Department of Media Studies, Christ University. For all those who are looking for a platform that focuses on communities, commons, climate, and communication, this is the place to be. What's more, this station is run by a diverse community of students and dedicated faculty members. Tune in to experience hard hitting interviews, fact checks and myth busting, on ground stories, campus news, and more. In today's episode, we have Prachi Pinglay in conversation with Jayaram Venkateshan, the founder of Arappor Iyakkam, a citizens' movement working to promote transparency and accountability in governance. They discussed the power of the Right to Information RTI Act, the importance of citizen participation, and how tools like RTI can be used to question systems and demand accountability.
Welcome to our podcast, sir. Very nice of you to join us here for multiple sessions, and I think you've already had good interactions with our students, and I hope it was great. We really welcome you on 4C Radio. Our podcast is about 4Cs, as you know. It talks about climate, communities, commons, and communication. So I think your experience in RTI activism and work in the field of environment is very much relevant to our platform, and it would be really wonderful to hear your thoughts.
Thank you for having me here.
So just to start with, could you just tell us about your project Arappor Iyakkam?
See, Arappor Iyakkam is a citizens movement that was formed primarily, I must say, out of fear. Because when I was working on issues of primary education or agriculture, one of the things that we kept seeing is so much of injustice or so much of maladministration and corruption happening around, and how do we raise questions about it. And when I saw that there is very clear corruption happening in the procurement of agriculture machinery, I went around looking for who will ask, is there an organization who will ask questions about it and so on. And then I found out, no, it's actually, I must be asking those questions. And how do I ask that question? The question was fear. Right. If you ask as an individual, then, there could be threats, there could be different things. So I felt that there is a need for raising questions in a democracy, and that is extremely important. And we also need to create a platform where such questions can be raised without fear. And therefore, myself, other friends got together. We formed this platform called Arappor Iyakkam, a movement called Arappor Iyakkam, where citizens can come together voluntarily and raise questions of corruption, maladministration. Then what happened was that the question was, what should be the goal of this organization? So we felt that we don't need to have a separate goal for an organization, given that, our constitution has, formed in our name, we the people of India. So, we need to form a just and equitable society is what our constitution says, and that should be the goal of every one of us, is what we thought. So Arappor Iyakkam was formed as a citizens movement to create a just and equitable society. And over the last 10 years, we have worked on several issues. And one of the key things that we thought is that it has to be data driven. Whatever questions that we raise, it has to be data driven, where we have to collect evidences and proofs before raising the question. And that is why this entire RTI Act was also brought under freedom of speech and expression. Because only when you have data about something, you can express yourself freely, you can talk about it, you can raise questions in a way where you can provoke or get answers from the administration and other places to solve the issue. And therefore, that has been our focus. Over the last 10 years, we have trained more than, we have done more than 200 RTI sessions and another 150 Know Your Rights sessions for citizens across Tamil Nadu. And we have also brought out almost more than 30 big corruptions that are happening in the state. More than 8 FIRs and a couple of charge sheets are about to be filed as well. So we have been continuously, so this platform has been raising questions to solve many of these public issues that we see around.
Right. That's amazing. I mean, that's also a lot of work. I want to know how you break it down in, one thing is to have the like the larger umbrella explanation of what you do. But one thing is also to actually get down and do the nitty gritty, right? So when you mention data driven evidence, how do you go about it when an issue comes up, and how do you build on it?
Yeah.
Like the journey from identifying a problem to, let's say, filing of an FIR.
Right. So it is never a case of starting with the research. In fact, it is the other way, where what we have always dealt with. So we go around looking for public issues. So there are people who come to us for public issues, reporting certain things, right? For example, a person came to us saying that there are no tablets in the urban primary healthcare centers over the last 2 months. So when such a issue came up, what we did was that we went to the hospital to check for whether tablets are there or not. But what we eventually found out was that there are no doctors in the first place in many of these centers. And then when we started probing that further, we had to file. So we hit a wall because the government was not willing to take any action on those doctors. So then we had to file RTIs to get data about who is the contractor to whom it has been outsourced for placing of these doctors and nurses. And then we found out that the whole cartel has been operating in this space. So there was sometime a small issue of a tablet. It led to a finding of a huge corruption. And there are other issues, like for example, we had this 2015 floods in Chennai, right? So when we went for relief work, that is when we found things like, for example, there were a few houses which was inundated for more than 10 days. And when we asked them why your house is inundated, they said, we came to this place 20-30 years back, but then they kept laying the road above and above. Now our house is beneath the road. So when it rains, the water enters the houses.
Right.
And then we started understanding why are they laying the road above and above instead of milling the road and
then doing it,
right? So that is when we found out the type of corruption that is happening in terms of the tenders, because the tenders mandate milling of the road. And how corruption happens within that is something that we found by digging the data into it. And you keep searching for more and more. And there are different ways in which you have to do it. Like, for example, today, data is not just through RTIs. There is this public can do online research as well. And there are this whole tender informations, procurement information that are put up online.
On public domain. It's available in public domain.
Domain. One of the issue that we face with many of these public domains is that they remove the tender document after the tender closes. So volunteers got together. What we did was that we stored all those tender data in Chennai, and then we have put them online in our own website called tntenders.arappor.org.
Oh, lovely.
So that, see, when a road is laid, which is like 3 or 4 months after the tender is floated, and a citizen wants to go and look up what is there, what are the items that has to be laid, they don't find the tender. Right. And therefore, actually, you need those documents. So this is something that we did as a citizens initiative. Right. So I think data is crucial in many of these things. And when we say data is crucial, it is also about, to find the data, you may have to look at multiple sources, and which includes field validation as well. So you have to also go to the field to validate whether what the data is saying is true on the ground as well.
Corroborating or not.
On the ground as well. So I think that's what we have been trying to do.
In fact, I remember, when we started out journalism, I started in 2001. And one of the things that our chief reporters used to tell us was, check the classifieds very carefully and look at all the tender notices that come out, because there are often stories hidden in those tiny tender notices as what are the tenders that are being announced and who's getting them, and that becomes a fairly important story in times to come, actually.
Right. In fact, we have to extend that. When we looked at that, we found out that, after Pongal, the Pongal is a festival in Tamil Nadu. So after Pongal, there was a tender floated for, Pongal related work. And so immediately we picked up and saw the work was already done.
Yeah.
The tender was floated later
Right.
to basically make the payment.
True,
So it was already prefixed. So it was a very simple story, but we were able to pick it just because we looked at that tender website.
Right. Amazing. No, I mean, the other thing I wanted to ask you was, we have young journalists in our classes, and data is obviously one of the most important ways of practicing journalism. So if you could elaborate on how one journalists, and also to extend it, if people like if citizens can use data to bring a public issue to light, or to highlight a public issue which is important but remains hidden or unanswered by the institutions.
Right. See, many a times today's journalism deals with already available information in the public. Someone raises an issue on the ground and they report it. But I think there is much more to be done in terms of investigation or in terms of looking at the data, which needs real hard work. So many a times, what we don't do is that when we look for data, we always think that it has to be done in a day, in a couple of days, and so on. But that's not the real case. So when you start working on a data, we need to have an understanding that it may take even 3 months or 6 months or even up to a year. In fact, there are issues where we have worked on which took almost 2 years for us to get the complete data before we can report on it. But even after 2 years, it was a very important issue. When we raised it, it became a big issue. So therefore, I think it is extremely important to understand that data, it may take much more longer than you think, and you should not, just because it takes longer, you don't dump the story. You keep working on it parallelly. Well, I mean, in the meantime, of course, you can report other stories as well, but you keep working on things that you started off. That is very, very important. Number two, I think with respect to the data, I will give you an example about what we see visually versus what is on the ground, right? So for example, in 2015, after the flood, one of the places that we went to, we saw a lake in Villivakkam, where huge tons of metro rail earth was dumped into that lake. And what had happened was that we actually went to that area for relief work. Almost 13 days, the entire place was inundated with water. So we tried finding the reason. We asked the citizens, they said, see, water is not entering the lake because there is so much of metro rail earth that has been dumped. So we visited the lake and we saw all the inlets were closed, and almost 20 acres of that lake was filled with this metro rail earth. Now this is something that we see visually. We see how it is blocking. This itself is a story. But question is, many a times to solve that public issue, you may need things much more than that. For example, you need to prove that it is dumped by metro rail's earth. So we filed RTI. Metro Rail said, no, we did not dump it. It is not our dumping site at all.
Right.
So then what happens? So then you need to think about who are the other people who will have data. It is not just about, so many a times the department that will that is the interested party in it may not share the data.
They'll not come forward with the data that we have made this mistake, sort of a thing. Yes.
So you will have to look at plenty of other places. So what we did was, who was responsible for managing that lake? So that was Metro Water Department. So we filed another RTI thereafter with the Metro Water Department, asking for how much acres of land in this lake is filled with metro rail earth. So that was the way we questioned them. So they said 20 acres has been filled with metro rail earth.
Oh wow.
So that was the answer that we needed, in fact, in terms of moving up. Then thereafter we moved a public interest litigation and to restore the lake. And when it didn't take much time for us to convince the judge, because the judge saw this. And immediately he asked the Metro Rail, see, you have dumped it. Even though Metro Rail came and said in the court, no, we did not do it. So it was very clear data on paper. So I think many a times we also look at where we can get that data. With respect to illegal mining also we did this. If you go and ask the mining department, they won't give it. So we asked other people, like for example, the collector's office will have it, the sub-collector's office will have it. So we got the data from the sub-collector's office because we heard that the sub-collector had penalized some of these mines. So he may be the person, that may be the office where we can maybe get the data. So I think we also need to look at multiple sources, multiple ways of, how do we get the data and how do we frame the questions. So framing the questions is also, otherwise they will just give random vague answers for too many of these questions as well.
nowadays you have workshops for writing correct prompts. Maybe we should have workshops for asking correct questions.
Right.
Yeah. But see, all of these issues obviously are about uh, confronting a lot of powerful people. So what kind of risks do you sort of think about or calculate, or and in terms of avoiding let's say counter cases on you, or defamation, or even just plain threats or any kind of pressure tactics? How do you really deal with all of that, and how should journalists try to deal with it?
Right. See, one thing that we, when in our work, what we thought was that, see, given that we are questioning corruption at very high places, of course there is going to be a backlash. They are going to get back at us. They may attack us in different ways. And of course, one of the ways in which they attacked us is through a series of defamation cases. So there was close to 18 defamation cases filed on us with 1 crore each and so on.
Oh my God.
Asking 1 crore each and so on. But we didn't have, much to fear, primarily because we ensured that whatever we spoke about, there is a data backup for it. So I think one thing that we must ensure is in today's world where sensationalism is all going around and all that, there is so much of exaggeration that's going around. And, in today's world, if you mix 7 truth with 3 lies, no one can actually find. It may sensationalize the whole issue in a much bigger way. But that will land you in defamation when you do that. That will also, the other side who is reading the story, the government which is reading the story, or the other people who have done that wrong, will know you are lying. So you are not genuine in your efforts.
Correct.
Right? So it's extremely important for us to be sincere in this, not exaggerate or talk extra or disproportionate with respect to the kind of data that you have. Talk proportionately to the data that you have. So that will ensure that the chances of defamation cases will be less, and even if defamation cases are filed, you can win that. So out of those 18 cases that were filed on us, 17 we have won. One is pending in the court. That will also we are sure that we will win. So therefore, I think that is how we journalists can approach this kind of a problem. And when you raise some of these issues, you have to expect the backlash, but you have to create this ecosystem where you are ready for it.
Right.
And there are also excellent advocates who argue pro bono. So you also need to build that network of people, good people around the society, who will also come to your rescue when something like this happens.
Right. Wow. Because that's something that one always fears when you're sort of investigating a big story, or you're always worried about what will happen next, and sometimes it leads to self-censorship also, where you feel that you get stuck somewhere and you feel, okay, maybe we can't proceed anymore, and so many times I think young journalists, especially those who work independently, who don't have an organization to back them, often worry about these issues a lot. Right. So I think
one suggestion there, I think quite a few journalists do practice, is where they don't name that company or person necessarily, but they still bring out the corruption. But then today's social media world, other people will put the names after you bring it out. So
that's I don't
that
think
way, that is another way.
Yeah.
But you see, that doesn't carry your story a long way.
Correct,
I think you
correct.
need to get out of that fear. See,
Yeah.
fear is sometimes, we keep saying that, those people who are doing so much of corruption, so much of injustice, they don't fear about anything. We are doing the right thing. Why should we fear about what we do? So that is what I think.
Absolutely. Is there any particular story or any particular sort of issue that has stuck with you that you would like to share with us?
Yes, there are plenty of things, but I think one that I see is that touches the poorest. There is plenty of corruption that is happening, but I think the kind of corruption that hits the most, or in fact the deepest impact it can create, is when with respect to the anti-corruption efforts for the poorest. So, for example, in PDS, public distribution system, what we found out was that the dal that you get in the PDS shops, the government procures from private players, right? What we found out was that there is always a problem in the ration shop that we are seeing every now and then. When people go and ask, dal is not there. If you go on the 10th day, it's not there. 15th day, it's not there. You have to rush in the first 3 days. So all this is because of the rampant corruption that happens in the PDS system as well. So we looked at this part, and in fact we came up with we filed RTIs, and we found out there was this only one company which is winning all the tenders. Okay. We heard about it, but when we filed it, we saw that there are 3 companies that were bidding. So, and 2 of them were public sector enterprises. So, when we went and inquired that public sector enterprises, so who are those public sector enterprises buying their dal from? We found it's the same company which were competing with them. So, if it was A, B, and C competing, so B and C got their dal from A as well. So, basically, it was the same person.
So, A is basically ruling
everything.
Right.
And they were bidding at almost 146 rupees per kg for dal, when the market price was just 90. And when we brought this out, so we brought this out in a way where, I went and bought dal from the retail shop and showed, see, this is only 105 rupees and this is high quality dal that we have got. And they are bidding for 145 rupees. Government is buying from them at wholesale for 145 rupees. And it became a big issue. The government immediately, cancelled the tenders. So we told them, you have to, bring in more bidders. You have to free the conditions and so on. So they did it. And immediately 25 days later, when they floated the new tender and 9 people participated, even the same person who was bidding in the previous one for 145 rupees, he quoted 87 rupees per kg for the same dal. So it was almost a 60 rupees per kg saving.
It's a lot of difference. It makes a big difference to people who have to buy it from PDS.
Yeah. See, because the PDS also has a budget, right? So if it has 300 rupees, for example, if it buys at 100 rupees, it will have 3 kg.
Correct.
It could good for 3 people. Whereas if it buys for 150 rupees, it can only buy 2 kg and it can only give it for 2 people. So the third person will not have that dal. So this is how it directly affects them.
Right.
And this is for 20,000 metric ton. So which is like 120 crores in just that one tender that we were able to save.
Right.
And over the last 3-4 years, we have been monitoring quite a bit, and the saving would have been, if we brought out this 2,000 crore corruption that had happened from almost 16 to 21, and now over the last 3-4 years we must have at least saved 3,000 crores by just monitoring these tenders. So that is something that's close to our heart as well.
That's amazing. I mean, it's very inspiring to see your work. I also wanted to ask you about RTI. Of course, is very, very important to your work, and currently DPDP Act is in the news for all the wrong reasons. How do you look at the current act, and does it affect your work? Does it affect people? How does it affect people?
Yeah, it is going to affect all of our work in a big way, because the earlier RTI Act, with the exemption under 81J, it was very balanced. There was a very clear balance between right to privacy and right to information. So it said that data under the RTI Act is exempted. Personal data under the RTI Act is exempted only when it is unrelated to public work or public activity. When something is unrelated to public work or public activity, or it could result in unwarranted invasion of privacy of the individual. So this is a good balance, because you need to give personal data otherwise, which are about public work, public activity and so on, and one that doesn't invade the privacy of an individual, you need to give. The other kind of data you need not give, where it invades the privacy of the individual. So this is a good balance between right to information and right to privacy. What the DPDP Act has now done, under section 44(3) of the DPDP Act, they have amended section 81J of the RTI Act to say that all personal data are exempted. Now this is a big issue, because if you say all personal data are exempted, so tomorrow you are asking for who is the contractor to whom you have given this road work. the government can come back and say it's personal data of the contractor. So I can't give the name of the contractor. I can't give and this doesn't make sense at all, because it is out of public money. It is out of public infrastructure is being built out of public money, and you need to know, citizens need to know who built it and whether he or she is technically eligible or not for building a bridge, for building a road, and so on. And so these are public information. And you can't hide these things in the name of privacy. In fact, the DPDP Act, in fact, it should have been, the way it should have been is it should safeguard citizens from the big corporations and the government, monitoring on them or so. But it does the reverse. In fact, it has saved the government. The government says it can actually, it has exempted itself from the DPDP Act. And what it has done is that citizens should not get any information. So the information flow to the citizens has been withheld. Right. So it has done exactly the reverse of what it is supposed to do. Yeah. And therefore...
Also what the spirit of RTI Act is, right?
Yeah, the RTI Act is now... they have been using Section 81J. For anything that you ask, they will say personal data. But then we will appeal and say, see, only if it is not related to public activity, it could not be given. But now they are just going to use left, right and center and reject most of the information. So this is a big... we are already saying that it's a death knell for the RTI Act. And the economic survey right now that has come up, it has further said that all the file notings must also be exempted. So actually, they have proposed this in the economic survey, and that will be a huge blow as well. See, if you remember in 2006, there was an attempt to do that, and there was a big civil society uprising, and they ensured that the government takes back this amendment. They did not do it, and today it has again come in the form of the economic survey. Yeah.
Any last words for the students that you would like to say?
No, I think only one thing that we have to say, that you follow your heart. Of course, when you go to the industry, go to the place, there will be a lot of censoring that you will see. But that censoring is you should find a way to uncensor and report in a way that you could make an impact on the lives of lakhs or millions of people. So that is extremely important. I think they should follow their passion. I'm sure at this age they will be very passionate, and they should never lose that passion as they go into the industry as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having you, and we'd love to have you more often. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you for listening to this podcast. As always, stay curious and tune in for more. This episode was hosted by Diya, edited by Guru Aditya, and illustrated by Vernika. Please write to us and follow us on X, Instagram, and LinkedIn.